I'm going to start by telling you a story, which for us is, we always talk about in VerifyMe, our company. In 2013, a Nigerian man who grew up in Nigeria, had not been to Nigeria for a very long time, lived in Atlanta, decided to come back to Nigeria with his family, so his nuclear family could meet his extended family. Of course, he had spent many years or decades in Atlanta at the time, and a lot of us, when we're there, coming back, they always advise us, make sure you have good security, do your checks. So he knew he needed help. They would need a cook while they were here. He elicited the help of a staffing agency who did the traditional ID verification we did in Nigeria at the time. And he was very excited. They got a cook. He was going to introduce his son to pepper soup and Argungu stew and all these great things. He was really, really excited about it. And then they came to Lagos. When they got here, the story goes, he was just so fascinated with his cook, asking him to cook great things every day. Cook me this pepper soup. I want my nsala and I want this. So, he was a foodie, a Nigeria foodie, and he was really ODing on this food with this cook, really taking advantage of him. One fateful day, they had a great meal this cook cooked. And that meal they had changed the trajectory of their lives really forever and changed the path. On that day, they were poisoned. They were poisoned by this cook, and they slept for 18 hours while the cook robbed and cleaned out their house and left them in their house, drugged, not knowing whether they were going to survive the drugs he had given them. When they woke up, of course, the first thing a father thinks about is his wife and his child, right? This has happened. They were very sick. His son had to be airlifted out of the country because of the reaction to the drugs. He was so angry that he was determined to find the perpetrator of this crime. I'm going to find this cook. So the community got involved. They put flyers, pictures, descriptions of this cook everywhere. And concerned citizens started to call in saying, of sightings. I've seen him here. I've seen this cook at this location. Within a few days, believe it or not, they were actually able to find this cook working less than 5 minutes away in another home. They immediately descended on that home with the police. He was very excited. I'm going to get justice for my family. When they got there, this cook was working in this house with a different name. The police asked him for his ID. He had a completely different ID that he could get. There was no biometrics on his ID. They had no way to prove who he said he was before. He had changed his identity completely. In 2013, the advent of NIMC and BVN wasn't that great, and there were many, many Nigerians whose identity was not linked to biometrics. So this was actually the beginning of the idea of our Uncharted Waters. Ladies and gentlemen, this story is the story of the founder of VerifyMe, Tunji Oluwole. When this happened to him, he was determined for this never to happen again to anyone. And the anger he felt and the love he felt for his son that this had happened made him determined to start a system where there would be biometric verification for employers, at least domestic employers in Lagos. It is the reason I'm here today to talk about our emotions, such as anger, such as love, and when you really face them and look at why you are experiencing these emotions, they can actually push you to be innovative. And they can actually push you to face uncharted waters so that we can solve problems in our community. So one of the interesting things you guys are talking about, probably thinking is, wow, this Tunji story is, fantastical and terrible. And he's a great guy, but why are you here telling the story? Tunji is fine, Tunji is great, and we have together worked to build a company since all of this happened. Now, I am here today, and I'll tell you a little bit of my story, because by chance meeting, I was able to join this VerifyMe journey in being in uncharted territory in Nigeria. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself. In 2015, I was visiting Nigeria, still living in Washington, D.C. In 2015, I'd been there for about 21 years at the time. I moved in 1995. And I was, going to the airport, and my mom lives near the airport, so I was like, my mom told me she cooked this great soup as well, and, I have some time, let me, stop at her house and go, get something to eat. So as I got there, I ate. I said, I'll visit some friends. Walking down the street, on the street where I grew up, I saw a line of a few people registering. This is in 2015, under an umbrella and giving their biometrics. So I asked a friend, I said, what is going on here? And the friend said to me, oh, that's this company called VerifyMe. Remember Tunji, who we went to nursery school with? I said, yeah. He said, well, something terrible happened to him and his family, and he started this company collecting biometrics so that Nigerians and people who want to employ folks can have some security, where you can check their work history, you can at least have their biometrics, because there's no biometrics in this country. Now, at the time, I had spent a few years as a portfolio manager at a company called Mantech International Organization, working on solutions architecture and enterprise architecture. In layman's terms, that's really, building models for and interrelationships in organizations so that you can execute their business transformation. And when you look at an organization in such a way, you tend to see the relationships between technology, business architecture, vision, strategy, implementation, and all those things are kind of part of your whole mind map on how you think every day. So once I heard this, my mind began to explode. And I said, you have to call Tunji now. I need to talk to him. This is a great idea. Luckily for me, he was actually close by, and he came and said, Tunji, I have only 15 minutes, but you have such a great business, I want to talk to you. 15 minutes became almost 2 hours. I almost missed my flight. I said, Tunji, I have to go, but let's shake hands, and we're going to do a deal. Let's do something. This is really big, what you have here. And we shook hands. In 2015, I became a consultant for the company called VerifyMe. In 2016, a year later, and this was a very, very tough journey at the time. I had a more than full-time job, really. As a portfolio manager, you're probably working 60 to 80 hours a week, managing a lot of staff, responsible for consultants' payments, your salary payrolls, your bottom line, your business development. So for 1 year, from 2015 to 2016, my day started at 2 a.m. every single day, so I could start work with the team in Nigeria. Before, I would stop at 7 a.m., face my job in US till the end of the day, do a little bit of VerifyMe work after, and basically have 3 to 4 hours sleep. My wife would tell me, oh, you're such a workaholic. But at the time, it really didn't feel much like work, because I was following this passion, right? I was looking at what was going on in Nigeria, what was available in Nigeria, the fact that this was an opportunity to bring something that could literally enable industry growth through trust. If you can digitize trust for every individual and have anyone who wants to give a service have access to that data, you would have explosive micro-lending in this country. You will have explosive even credit lending for so many other facilities. And one of the reasons we don't have credit lending, by the way, in Nigeria is because there's no proper ID verification and KYC, where you really get trusted information on people. So, why are we here? We're here today because in looking at our uncharted waters and the story of VerifyMe, we've realized that it was the tragedy of what happened to Tunji, the fact that he faced his anger, the fact that he loved his family, but not just loved his family to say, oh, I'm going to run away to Atlanta and never come back here again, but loved Nigeria also to say, okay, I'm going to protect my family, but I'm going to build a solution that will also protect other Nigerians. Is the reason we were able to get here to our uncharted waters. And it was only just the beginning, getting this idea. I will tell you a funny story about uncharted waters, or when you have a big idea. In 2017, when I was coming, after I had become a co-founder, I started out as the COO of VerifyMe Nigeria. I had this great idea. I was flying down to meet the team in Lagos. I said, I had done my slides. I had 30-minute schedules for all the meetings we were going to have. At 10:30, I said we were going to break out into sessions. I think I arrived Sunday morning in Lagos. I worked the whole day. My office at the time was in Yaba. I said, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to try to show the team my, American experience and discipline and all of this great. I had this wonderful idea. had my coffee, got to work. I was, even serious face, really feeling serious with myself. As I got to the office, I was about to just knock on the door of my office. The general manager where I had hired at the time opened the door and was like, Oga, there's been no light for 3 days. Nobody's laptop is working, and I don't know what you're going to do. And before then, I had set my alarm for 10:30, where at 10:30, we're going to break out into sessions so that we can have some small group meetings on the 2 hours of training that we had done. It was so funny and poignant for me because at 10:30, my alarm went off. And what I was doing at 10:30 was I was carrying a generator on the back of a pickup truck as the diesel was splashing on me and trying to figure out how we can basically fix this generator so we can get back to work. I wasn't expecting that morning. And this is one of the things I would say you have to be prepared for when you are in uncharted waters. We were in uncharted waters in two ways in Nigeria. One, our solution was new and never had been done before. And two, the level of unpredictability you are dealing with, because of course, as you know, in Nigeria, our ease of doing business is still under improvement, was also very challenging. And we had those two things to deal with at the same time. So as you're talking to international organizations and venture capitalists and trying to be as professional and corporate as you can with all your metrics and ideas, you literally can be doing so on a meeting in Nigeria and be using your leg to push the internet, so that your video call doesn't go off. And all of this has to be working in sync in this country. Those were things I never had to deal with in America, right? I remember once I was on a video call with a big customer, and it was interesting. I'm not normally on video calls, they're conference calls. And my internet went dead downstairs all of a sudden, and I knew I had internet upstairs. So without thinking, I carried my laptop and started running upstairs as I was talking. And I was now looking for a good place to stay, in the house, where I could get good signal. And then about 5 minutes later, I realized that everybody was looking at me as I was running around with my laptop in the house. I had forgotten that I was on camera. And what do you have to do in Nigeria? And they weren't even in Nigeria, they were in South Africa, somewhere in New York. You have to continue with a straight face, right? You just have to continue. So it's been a very interesting ride for me in terms of getting here. I've learned a lot that our emotion, our passion, and what we feel every day is what we're going to use to propel ourselves to change our country and change our circumstances and change our future. And so to all the people listening, to the youth, to people who have innovative ideas, it is one, your big idea, but that's actually not the uncharted water. The uncharted water starts when you start executing your big idea, right? And execution is a loaded word. Execution is consistency, so it's waking up every day if you have to, right? Execution is operational excellence, so it's always really committing to being the best. It's not really about, I think somebody had mentioned benchmarking. You benchmark yourself against the best. Execution is about professional integrity as well. And you have to bring all these different things together. So you have your big idea. You have your vision that's really going to take you to your uncharted waters. And you have your execution that's like your boat when you're in the water. If you don't have good execution, you're going to sink in that uncharted water. And I'm here today to also say, so why are we here? If you also really deeply think about it, all of us are born into uncharted waters in this country. When you're born, you're in uncharted waters. So the moral of the story really is, this is life, right? So as we grow up, we need to find those tools that will propel us forward to take our stories, our narratives, our vision for us and for our betterments to take us to the next level and use our anger, use our love, use our passion to get to that next level for Nigeria. Thank you.